everybody. All right. Today we are talking about when you should be concerned about your baby's tongue. And the reason I am doing today's video on that topic is because I get this question a lot. Um, Lots of times in my babies at play classes, I have mamas come to me and they're talking about how breastfeeding is such a struggle, or their baby couldn't breastfeed and now they're formula feeding, or they're bottle feeding, or sometimes they're triple pumping, and all of these things. And when I ask them if they have ever had their baby's tongue function assessed, they kind of look at me either with like these big eyes of like, what? Or they'll tell me that, oh, the midwives or the doctor or whatnot looked in the baby's mouth and said that there was no tongue tie. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about why it is so important to assess your baby's tongue function, whether there is a tongue tie or not, because that is only one of the reasons why the tongue might not be functioning. Some of the other reasons why the tongue might not be functioning optimally or moving the way it should be moving could be because of other body tightness going on. So the tongue is actually comprised of 8 muscles, and those kind of hook into or attach to a little bone in our neck here, in our throat area, called the hyoid bone. Those muscles are all also innervated by cranial nerves, which come through the back of our neck, or back of our head, like a back of our neck, kind of like under the skull, right? And so if there is any body tightness because of the way your baby was in utero, or because of what happened during labor and delivery, were there forceps used? Was there vacuum? Were they breached? Did they have to be pulled out? Did you have an emergency C-section? All of these things, because often the emergency C-sections there's a reason for them, right? Baby was in suboptimal positioning for some reason and was not coming down properly. And so all of those things. Did your baby have the umbilical cord wrapped around their neck a few times, right? All of these things can cause a lot of tightness in the neck area, but also in the front of the body, which can all pull everything down, including the tongue. Also, if there's any head molding, right? All babies have some head molding as they're coming through the birth canal, but if that doesn't kind of correct and come out of that molding and kind of go back into that nice round shape after birth, one of the reasons why that might not happen is if your baby doesn't have a good strong suck, which means that their tongue is likely not working properly. And so those bones in your head or your baby's head can compress those cranial nerves, which can then affect the ability of the tongue muscles to function properly. And so we really need the tongue to be moving side to side, up, down, and out and in. Okay? And so oftentimes what happens is doctors look and they're like, oh, your baby can stick their tongue up. That's fine. That's it. Okay, fine. Needless to say, maybe they can't get their tongue to the roof of the mouth. And when that tongue is not coming to the roof of the mouth, then they're not going to be able to suck that nipple, to squash and kind of create that vacuum and that suction to get the milk out, even the bottle nipple, okay? That can lead to things like reflux, gas, pain, discomfort, all of these different things. And so I want to share with you a few of these other sort of just, I guess, some little symptoms that you can kind of start looking for in your baby that might lead to tongue dysfunction, okay? And it's not necessarily because of tongue tie, although having a too tight, too short, or too thick frenulum, that little string under the tongue, can lead to tongue dysfunction. So that could be one of the reasons why your baby's tongue is not moving properly. So definitely something to get really looked at. And when somebody is assessing the tongue, you want their fingers in your baby's mouth, hopefully gloved, but you want their fingers in your baby's mouth because they want to be assessing. You want them to be looking at and assessing, how does that tongue move? Okay. So some of the symptoms that there might be something going on with tongue function for your baby is if they are falling asleep at the breast or the bottle. So if they're just sucking for a minute or two and then they fall asleep, then that means that that sucking is a lot of hard work for them and they are exhausted. Okay, so it's not efficient. Sometimes if they are nursing or they're feeding better on a bottle than a breast, that could also be an indicator, because usually kind of sucking from the bottle is going to be easier. If they have still milk, like that white film from the milk on their tongue, even after feeding, that means that they're not getting their tongue up to their palate to clear the tongue, to clear that milk away. If there's any clicking or kind of like noisy feeding, if there's difficulty with bottle feeding, if they are really slow feeders, if there's lots of leaking, whether it's dribbling milk down your breast or from the bottle. Again, I mentioned babies that are really gassy, that have reflux. That means they're taking more air in. And there's a reason why they're taking more air in. There's something going on with the latch, which is likely due to tongue dysfunction. Okay. If they're eating frequently, but not for very long, that is another sign that they're not efficiently feeding. And it's so hard for them. It's a lot of work. So they're getting tired. Also, some symptoms for mom: painful or difficult latch, delayed or low milk production. And so, of course, if you had a C-section, your milk production is going to be a little bit more delayed than if you had a vaginal birth. But delayed or low milk production, it might not be because your body can't produce the milk. It might be because your baby is not actually extracting the milk properly because of this poor tongue function. Therefore, the feedback to your body says, oh, my baby doesn't need that much milk. I'm not going to make that much milk. And so it's this vicious cycle. So you really want to get that looked at. Other symptoms are things like nipple trauma, so cracked, bleeding nipples. Breastfeeding should not hurt. It should not pinch. It's not something that your breasts have to, or your nipples have to harden and get used to. If there's creased nipples, if they're really, really flat nipples, that's another kind of thing. If you're feeling like there is something wrong, it probably is something going on, and please go and get further assessment done. Okay. So impact of oral dysfunction on breast or bottle feeding can be things like uncoordinated suck, swallow, breathe, where like your baby is kind of like gagging and can't figure out how to get the milk and swallow the milk and breathe at the same time. And they're kind of gagging and choking and all of those things. Unproductive suction, so they could be popping on and off. Again, there's nipple problems for you, plugged milk ducts. Maybe they're biting the nipple because they're actually biting down to help them stabilize, because they can't actually get their tongue and their lips and everything to really create that seal and that seal around the breast or the bottle. Spillage we talked about, and then the reflux as well. So now I want to just quickly talk a little bit about what you can do at home. So yes, there is definitely therapeutic exercises that you can do to get that tongue moving. But one of the things I really love, especially for pretty much for any baby, you'll have to hold these things like when your baby is still little. But I love some of these teething toys can be used for promoting good tongue function. So this is a really great one that I love. This is from the Manhattan Toy Company. And the great thing about this is that these little balls can often fit right into baby's mouth. And they'll like lick on it and chew on it and move with their tongue. They're going to lick that little ring thing, try to get it, right? All of those things. So this is a really great one. This is also great to have while your baby is doing tummy time, because it doesn't roll away. It kind of stays still, and it's like perfect height for them to get their mouth on. So this is a really, really nice one to have. I also really like any kind of toys. This is another fun one for the little ones. Any other teething toys that have these kind of cylindrical shapes, and you can play around with the different sizes depending on the size of their mouth. For older babies, I love this kind of thing. This is kind of, it's called a Giffy Teething Toy, the Giffy, 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 Giftty. You'll find the link to all of these in my Amazon storefront, so you can click that with this video. And essentially what this is great. First of all, it has all sorts of different kind of sensory, tactile little bubbles and things on it. So there's lots of sensory exploration happening. But I like this because baby, first of all, has control over how far they put it back. They can chomp on it with their gums. They can lick it with their teeth. It can do all sorts of things with it. They can move it around. You could put purees on here. You can stick the puree into the cheek and get them to lick the inside of their cheek. You can put the puree up onto the roof of the mouth, see if they can get that. So you're lots of different things. This also has a little gag kind of thing. So you can put this, if your baby likes to stick things really far, or they have a very sensitive gag reflex, you can kind of curb that by moving this little round thing. But generally, these cylindrical type of teething toys are the ones that I really love for that oral function. These kinds of things also that baby can kind of just like chomp on kind of get their tongue going. You really want their tongue to be moving a lot. Different kinds of sensory things. These ones kind of stay in place as well. I sort of, the O-ball stuff, I don't know how well I love these. Oftentimes babies, it's too big to actually kind of like figure out how to get their tongue in there. So it takes a little bit more skill in my opinion. So this is not really one of my go-to. I like the longer cylindrical ones, but there's a whole bunch of other ones like these kinds of things. I like these also. This also has like different sensory components to it. I think this might be even like one of those baby toothbrushes. So you can see, I'm trying to just see what other things, even having something like this is literally like meant to be a baby toothbrush, but even having something like this where they can just like, you can put it in their mouth and they can just chomp on it and get that tongue moving a little bit, right? So really anything that you can find that you can get that tongue moving, you can do it even with food. Long carrot sticks, long celery sticks. So if your baby is around that intro to solids age, so like 5.5 months, 6 months, you can use sticks of food to have this oral motor play too, because by that point, they might not necessarily be interested in all of these oral motor toys. But those are really, really, really great to start getting that tongue moving. Imitation. I just saw a mom at the clinic yesterday, and she was saying to me that she was having difficulty doing some of the exercises with the exercises that I had taught her to get the tongue moving. She said, but what I've been doing is I've been getting my son to click his tongue. And she's been imitating that. And that her son, her baby, has been imitating back. And I was like, that's perfect. That is a functional way to get the tongue moving. So really, I highly recommend that if you have any issues with feeding, with breastfeeding, with bottle feeding, if your baby has reflux, that you are 100% going and getting an oral motor tongue function assessment, not just looking in the mouth and being like, oh yeah, I see your tongue, that baby's tongue is sticking out, totally fine, not a big deal, there's nothing there. I want you to get somebody to look inside their mouth, feel inside their mouth with their fingers. Get that tongue moving. You can do that yourself too and see, does that tongue move? Is there something causing restriction? Is that tongue moving freely? Is it tight? Is it not moving so well? Does it move the same to both sides? All of these things you can be looking at for your own baby as well, and then getting an assessment done by a professional who is trained in this. So OTs, speech language pathologists who are trained in tethered oral tissues. So not all of them are. Pediatric dentists who are trained in tethered oral tissues. Not all of them are. Pediatricians who are trained in tethered oral tissues. Not all of them are. So you really want to make sure that they do have that additional training. That's it for me today. I'm really trying hard to keep these videos under 10 minutes. This one is a little bit over. But you will find the link to my free group where I do lots of these trainings. You'll also find the link to my Amazon storefront where you can find all sorts of these different links to these different teethers that I have showed you today. So I would love to hear if you've tried any of these teethers, if your baby loves them, if they have a favorite. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.